As I look around at culture and see what's going on, it feels like the family is falling apart. At least the family at large, that is. So, how does God want us to do family? What does that look like? Well, if you've ever wondered that, I think today's podcast is going to be for you. So with that in mind, welcome to the Pure Heart Podcast. Whether you're a part of our church community or just tuning in, we're so glad that you're here. My name is Zach Good. I have the awesome opportunity to be the producer of this podcast, and I think today is going to be a great episode. So let's jump right in with our hosts, Heath Bottomley and Matt Nystrom.
So we're jumping into the Pure Heart Church podcast. So glad you're joining us today. Hey, we want to actually throw something out there. If you've got some ideas for us, because we've tried to come up with some ideas, and I'm here with my co-host.
We're scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
And we try and come up with stuff. And I literally, before we started recording, I'm like, did we talk about this already? I feel, and part of the problem is that because I talk a lot generally and tell stories, I'm just like,
Matt's a masterful storyteller.
I go, if I've told you this story, I'm not offended. Like, let me know. Like, if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm pretty sure he told this story like an earlier version of the podcast.
You're probably right.
You're probably right. Yeah. And I'm not offended if you skip ahead because or you can just listen to it again. I would be
because my stories, I never repeat my stories. So they're priceless.
Oh, priceless.
No, but share your stories and things. I mean, he's exaggerating a little bit. We have ideas for days.
A day or two.
Yeah, maybe half a week, depending. But we would love to know if there's other things, other topics and stuff.
Or things you're like, hey, I want, talk about something. That'd be interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, send it into
to podcast at pureheart.org.
Yeah.
Again, that's podcast at pureheart.org.
.org, not .net.com.
That is the email or electronic mail.
Or if you just go, I can't stand what you guys do. And I just, I'm kind of like the Muppets. You know, remember the Muppets, the old guys in the Muppets? And just every week I'm in my car driving, listening to you guys. Yeah. And I'm just like, well, you guys, can't you come up with it? So if you've got a better idea, send it there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing is I was trying to come up with some ideas, and I had a few that I'd kind of written down, but I thought, you know what I ought to do to look up for some ideas is what a lot of people are doing nowadays is Chat GPT. And this is these AI programs that people are using. Some people are familiar or less familiar with it. You get some people that are like, oh, I've been using it. Usually younger people are like, oh, that's how I graduated this year.
Yeah. I think our fan just stopped listening right now. Yeah. So thanks a lot, Matt.
They either are using that to graduate school, or they're using it for, to help with work. Some of the guys here on our IT team, they're actually using it to like, hey, how do I code this thing to add it to our website and stuff? So it's very handy. It can answer, lots of questions. Don't always trust it because it tends to hallucinate, is what they've said.
Which is what you want from an artificial intelligence that could take over the world, is something that is not all there.
Like, imagine if you Googled, actually, now that I'm actually giving this example, I'm going to say, imagine if you Googled stuff and the things that were there were just not true.
That's every Google search I've ever done in my life. That's mostly Google.
Even the sponsored results. Yeah. It's probably actually the sponsored results.
But if it's on the internet, it's absolutely true.
Yeah. So these, I saw this week, I guess a couple days ago, they're coming out with a new version that it's like you can actually have a conversation with it simultaneously. Now, there's a previous version that you could tap it and ask it a question, and then it, thinks a little bit and responds. But this one is kind of like that movie Her, where they have that personal assistant and someone they're having a conversation, knows everything about you. And the thing is look,
which is good because I don't have anyone to talk to in life.
Right.
But I guess I'm having a hard time understanding. I understand AI as a useful tool. I understand it as a way to do things that maybe you're incapable. But once you get to the point where you're having an interactive relationship, with AI, that's where I kind of drop. Going, why There are people in fact, I'm a people person, but there's so many people out there. I am trying to escape that. Why would you find a digital version of one?
It's totally a valid point, I think. And I think part of it could be because there's some of us that, you go, I just need someone to listen to my stories and be happy to hear it. Some of you
doesn't care if you've repeated them.
Have spouses right now that they're just going, hey, you know what?
Yep.
If you could actually talk to the AI, like, thank God there's a new generation. I've heard your story. Kids out there that they're like, Dad, we don't need to hear your story. You talk to Cloud or the Meta's
the AI loves
Llama something. There's some that are actually they're trying to release that are sort of like therapists. So I guess if you're they trust a thing that hallucinates information to give you advice.
Yeah.
I've
never had this issue, and I don't understand how the human brain works per se. But here's what I think you should do. Yeah. That's the type of advice that I need.
Right? It's like, hey, I just scraped together, random facts from the internet from a bunch of Reddit commenters.
Which, let's be honest, that's half of what we do anyways.
Well,
especially even for symptoms of being sick or whatever.
Sure.
I'm a WebMD guy, which is not good.
Not good.
It's like I have a headache. Oh my goodness, I'm dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. According to WebMD, I have 4 different types of diseases.
Yeah.
So
it's bad because you look at all these Google search results. And so you go, well, I don't want to click through stuff. I just want an answer. I think that's what the appeal is to the AI stuff. It's like, I don't want to.
It consolidates it.
Consolidates it. Yeah, just give me an answer. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see because there's been a couple movies out there where the AI didn't go.
If you grew up in the 80s and you lived in the 80s and 90s, we all know how this AI thing plays out, and it's going to be Skynet's going to go live and it's basically the end of the world as we know it.
End of the world.
And I feel fine.
Yeah, feel fine. And so that's why we have a great podcast today. And we're so glad you're joining us. So as we wrap up the end of our existence, you can
by the end of this podcast,
you can have a little bit of joy in your life.
Oh yeah, we take what we can get here.
But let's go ahead and jump in. We've got some great stuff today for you on the podcast. So Pastor Dan, we're into a brand new series. You
got all formal with me there real quick.
I did. It's like, share some truth and wisdom
Reverend,
with
tell me.
Reverend. Tell me about your housing that the pastor has. What's the word for that?
Housing allowance?
Well, not housing allowance. Like when the old school where you got
parsonage.
Parsonage. Yeah. Tell me about your parsonage.
Yeah, I don't have one.
Don't have one. But we were starting a series on family.
Yeah.
And this was something that I know anybody who's been around here knows that family is something you're passionate about. But I think there's some more reasons than just that I've heard you communicate.
I like to drop, whenever I'm teaching, I like to use illustrations, real life application. I'm big on real life application. How does God's word impact us every day where we're living? But recently, and so I use a lot of family stories and illustrations, show pictures of my children constantly.
I've never seen this.
I've never seen it. Yeah,
do you have some?
Have I told you about my kids? Have you seen my children?
Actually, that's something you don't see anymore. The wallet bifolds.
I've got a whole portfolio for you.
Yeah, now they just pull up their phone.
But really, there's a couple things that became the catalyst for wanting to do an entire series, just basically on family. And one of them is just with the adoption of Olivia and Ava, these two girls coming from a really broken background, both born addicted to drugs. Their mom, Lexi, is my wife's first cousin, and we pray for her daily. And she has wrestled with fentanyl and drugs for so long now. But it just reminded me of first of all, becoming a new dad at 54.
Yeah.
A dad again. To two little girls is next level, but it also reminded me
and they were babies when they came.
Absolutely, yeah. Olivia was 4 weeks old when she came home, and Ava was only 2 weeks old when she came home. So it just reminded me, first of all, the pressures of being parents again, with little ones in the house. And then secondly, just it awakened to me to how broken family is in our world. I know that we're a church that cares deeply about people who are hurting and broken, but it was like right at my doorstep now. It was right in my face of just how shattered with addiction, mental health struggles, anxiety, depression, all that is what that's wreaking havoc on, how it's wreaking havoc on families and breaking families. And so that was one thing. I was like, you know what, we need to do an entire series on family and just talk about that. I also think watching my mom and dad as they've aged, and, my mom has ALS, and she's, without a miracle, she's going to be going home to be with Jesus face to face soon. And watching my dad love her and how even his own struggle with his physical health, caring for her, but just watching the way my mom and dad love each other, and so kind of the contrast of these two beautiful girls coming into our life out of real brokenness.
Yeah.
And then my mom and dad who've walked with Jesus for 55 years in marriage. And just the beauty of how my dad serves my mom and my mom serves my dad. They didn't have a perfect marriage, okay, by anything. I mean, my mom went through all kinds of brokenness and hurt in her life, and actually was hospitalized when she was probably around the age of 30 years old. I was about 8 years old, and my mom was in just a difficult place from brokenness from her own past and her childhood. And so, but just watching my mom and dad applying the principles of God's word to their marriage, to their family, loving each other, not giving up on each other, staying committed in marriage, realizing that marriage is a covenant. And I'm going, look at the fruit of their life. Yeah. The way my dad is taking care of my mom right now is actually, I got so emotional a little while ago recording a message for the first weekend just because it's so beautiful. So I'm like, watching their example, watching the brokenness of our culture, I'm like, we need to talk about families. Yeah. We just really need to talk about families. So that's kind of the catalyst behind why I wanted to do this series. I think it's going to be so good. We're going to start off week 1 talking about more of an overarching 10,000-foot view of what is God's design for family. Yeah. Week 2, we're going to dive into healing of the brokenness of families, like really practical. Matter of fact, good friends of mine, Brian and Megan Bloom, are going to join me that weekend to teach. I love it. Okay, it's going to be so good. And then they're actually doing a conference, a marriage and family conference, a workshop for parents coming up at the end of June, right at the end of this series. So check that out. It's going to be so good.
At the Glendale campus?
At the Glendale campus in our youth auditorium. But anyway, that conference is going to be fantastic. And then the last weekend of the series is on leaving a legacy. How do we leave a legacy with our kids, with our families, And and here's the thing, even for singles, those of you who are young adults, you're like, oh man, this series isn't for me. No, all of you grew up in a family, first of all. Second of all, many of you want to have a family someday. Yeah. So man, let's get these principles in deep in your heart. And the other thing too is maybe many of you have young adults and singles that are me watching and listening to this series. You came out of some brokenness in your family. And maybe God has the ability, I know he has the ability to set you free and bring healing to your life for some of the stuff you walk through. So I'm super fired up for the series.
I know it seems a little silly when you become an adult and you look back at thoughts you had when you were younger. But I would look at other people's parents and you'd try and be like, why are they this way? Why are they that way? Or they're doing this thing or that thing. Yeah. And then you'd hear these stories about, this person's, dad went to jail or their mom's on drugs or whatever. And you just go, well, how could they, how could they do this? And then you get older and you realize they were just people. Yeah. They're just people trying to navigate their life. Some of them with deep hurts, deep pain, and they get into relationships. They end up having kids, and they bring their trauma and their brokenness into that next generation. Yeah. They go through divorce. They go through maybe there's abuse that happens, and this cycle continues on and on. And I'd looked at some of my family genealogy stuff over the years. We were trying to find my mom was adopted, and we were trying to find out who her dad was. And we discovered I've discovered a couple different lines in my family that one individual ended up in brokenness. And as I've connected with these relatives, just it continues on and on and on. And man, if we can be ahead of that, if we can help people stop that, to go, I don't need to be the one that this trauma carries on with. I don't need to be the one that this pain and brokenness in my family. Yes, it happened to me, but it has to stop with me. God's going to heal it. We're going to restore it. And I think also sometimes people have given up because they think they're too far down the road. Their kids are already, going through some challenging stuff. Their kids are acting out because of some of the situations that they've experienced, and they already probably feel like a failure and feel like there's no hope.
Yeah. The truth of the matter is that brokenness, if it's not dealt with and healed and allowed to set and heal, can actually create more brokenness. I mean, we know that. We see trauma ripples through family. But the thing that I love about brokenness is that if we honestly address that broken area of our life, be real about it. Don't pretend it didn't hurt. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Don't stay the victim. And also don't stay in a place of complacency. This is just who I am. And this is just who I am. No, you don't have to stay stuck there. But find something that you can be real with about it. Find the healing and the forgiveness and go along with that. And I use this illustration all the time. It's the illustration of a broken bone. If you break, like, say my finger, if I break my finger, where that finger is broken, if I allow that finger to set and to heal, it's actually, that area of that bone is actually stronger than any other surface, any other area in that bone. This is crazy. I'm going to go here. So it's a podcast, right? I can go
we can
these
dig.
interesting places. When I talk to young men about marriage, one of the biggest things I ask them to do is, and even young ladies as well, when they're thinking about marriage, I say to them, for a guy, I say, look at your wife's relationship with her father. Because I'm telling you, if there's unresolved issues with the father, that's going to carry into, you're going to, I hate to use this term, pay the price for. There's going to be a weight on you. She's going to look to you to bring healing in an area that you're not even designed to heal. You know, that can only be healed in their relationship with their dad. So I always tell them, look at their relationship with their father. If you're thinking about marriage, do they have a healed relationship? Do they have a broken relationship? Is there bitterness and anger? Because if it's not dealt with and healed, that's going to flow into your marriage. But here's the thing I also tell them. Don't be afraid of marrying somebody who's had real serious brokenness with their dad, a woman who's had brokenness with their dad, if they've been healed and now they can not excuse what their dad did and pretend it didn't happen, but they can honestly say, I forgive him and I honor him.
Wow.
Doesn't mean you have to respect everything that he does. Doesn't mean you have to like everything he does, but they show real honor. On Father's Day, there's a card. You know what I'm saying? When dad comes into the home, there's respectful language and respectful talk. They're not constantly rehearsing that pain anymore about their dad. Here's why. Because a person who's been broken and healed will be stronger than a person who's never been broken before.
Yeah.
I just believe that. I believe that people who have been broken and healed actually have the most impact on this world. The Word of God says, you know, the God's a God of all comfort. He comforts us in all of our troubles so that we in turn can comfort others. Yeah. So it's broken people who've been allowed to heal become the best healers. They become the ones who can go out and help other people. And I say the same thing to young ladies. I'm like, hey, if you've got a guy and he's got a mom wound, and he's constantly, you know, bagging on his mom and he's upset about his mom, you know, and all those kind of things. It's like, run for the hills because he's got mom issues. Yeah. And that's going to pour into your relationship. But if you've got a guy who went through a rough relationship, maybe even abandonment issues with their mom or their dad, and they've healed and worked through that, you got a strong guy. You've got somebody who understands forgiveness, which marriage requires a boatload of forgiveness.
Sure. Oh,
you know, so they've already worked that out in real time in the real world. They're going to live that out in the relationship and the marriage as well. So I think that broken people who have been healed or in the healing process are the strongest. Yeah. I really do. Matter of fact, I look for leaders in our church. I'm not afraid of leaders who have been broken because I think they become the best leaders. Yeah. If they've allowed the Holy Spirit to heal them from the inside out.
And I know the things for me the broken areas that I've had in my life, God's used those areas that what I've learned, what I've grown in, it's what it pours out of me. It's what I share with somebody else one-on-one and face-to-face. But what I realize is in those moments when he's using me in that way, that's actually making me stronger. And I think that's the case with some of these people who have experienced way more brokenness than I have in my life. But they've gone through great healing. And because of that, they're constantly wanting to pull people up. And I see that God continues to make them stronger and stronger as they're pouring into those other people's lives.
I think sometimes on the other side of healing, the enemy also wants to come along. If he can't get you stuck in your past and stuck in your bitterness, if you move through that, then he comes along on the other side and says, oh, but look how messed up your family is. Look how messed up your life was before. Who would want to be married to that? Yeah. That's a lie. Yeah. That's an absolute lie. Because you're going to make an amazing wife. You're going to make an amazing husband because you get it. You understand hurt. You understand pain. And you've had the strength by God's grace to move through that stuff. And so don't believe that lie. Yeah. You know, I know that Nicole had some serious stuff from her past, my wonderful wife. But I watched the way that she has worked through the pain of her life, worked through those emotions. And I'm married way above myself. My wife is an absolute gift from God. And I'm not just saying that because I want some kisses when I get home. But I mean, it wouldn't hurt.
Hey,
Nicole, if you're listening,
if you want to listen to this podcast,
if you want to check out this podcast where I brag on you so that you'll give me a kiss when I get home. But no, seriously, I love the fact that my wife has been through some stuff and come out the other side. I heard a pastor say one time, I got done sharing my testimony at a church, and this guy got up and he said, "Did you guys smell that today?" And I was just like, "Was it that bad? It stunk that bad?" And he goes, "No, that's the aroma of being sweetly broken." Yeah. And I remember thinking, sweetly broken. What does that look like? And I thought, you can be bitterly broken or you can be sweetly broken. Yeah. Sweetly broken means that I'm not only going through the healing process or healed from the past brokenness, but now I'm willing to use that to give glory to God and help other people. Yeah. That's the sweetness in it.
I think it's just sort of occurred to me because I didn't know a lot about Nicole's background, but I've heard a lot about your former wife and the experiences that she had. You shared your testimony about how she
pain of
cheated on you,
divorce, yeah,
and the pain on divorce that had brought into your life. But the reason that you saw that she went after this guy twice her age, and he came into came into their life and destruction that all brought. But if you kind of took a step back, and I remember you used the example, I've used it so many times of a golf example, that if you just look down right in front of you to putt something, you can get a perspective. But good golf is walking around to the other side and
take the long walk around.
Long walk around and getting down and seeing it from a different perspective. And you saw from her perspective the pain of her childhood and upbringing and this trauma that she'd experienced in her father relationships. And a lot of that then got brought into that marriage. And here she, it's sort of the contrast. I think there's the warning and the hope. You go, hey, look, this is what can happen if you haven't dealt with it. I know you got to do the hard steps. I know you got to work through the hard stuff, but here's where you're going to end up. You're going to end up just with some brokenness in your life, continuing on and on. Or if you're willing to do the hard work, look what God can do. Look what he can bring. Look what he can restore. And not only that, but make stronger in the process.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that my first wife did leave for another man and left the marriage, it was hard, most painful thing I've ever been through in my life. And I've talked about this a million times, but C.S. Lewis has an interesting line in his great book, The Problem with Pain. And he said, you can't know true joy until you've known true pain. And as much as I hate that I had to go through a divorce, and the brokenness and the pain and the rejection, and for the first few years of our marriage, Nicole and I, when we got married, I brought some of that insecurity and that fear and into our marriage. I remember she came home.
Wait a second, Pastor Dan's not perfect?
No, I'm not. She came home from a Christmas pageant. She went to a Christmas pageant with some girlfriends. She came home like 45 minutes late, and I met her at the door, and she looked at me. I was talking to her. I just thought I was talking normal. She goes, "Why are you yelling at me?" And I realized that it had triggered me.
Yeah.
Her being late triggered all the times my first wife came home late and she was with another man.
Yeah.
And it's just like I carried that into our relationship. But here's the thing. I don't think I would be able to appreciate Nicole's faithfulness to me and her love for me to the level that I do if I hadn't gone through that pain, if I hadn't felt that rejection.
Sure.
And God can do something so beautiful. I'm not saying everybody should run out and get broken, okay?
Yeah.
So that you can feel real joy in the future. But what I am saying is that God can use that pain in such a beautiful way that in the future, you will actually be able to appreciate goodness. You'll be able to appreciate faithfulness. You'll be able to appreciate love in a way that I couldn't appreciate if I hadn't been hurt.
Sure.
So, I'm looking forward to the series.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good because we just see that there is family. When it goes bad, it consumes everything in your life.
Absolutely.
And then just the pain that branches out and affects everyone around them. And so, man, if we can make families healthier, if we can make them stronger, and that's a tough thing. I've got a friend who he's currently in a situation with his wife where she is not willing to admit any fault. She's got some major brokenness, actually with her father. She's not willing to admit any fault. She's says he's the problem. Yeah. And not that he goes, I have some issues, sure. But he goes, let's get some counseling. Let's do some things. Let's try and work through it. And he feels like he's at an impasse because he's always wrong. And the brokenness that she's bringing continuously
from
turmoil from the father is now affecting
She's projecting
their kids.
that onto him. Man, that happens so often in relationships. It really does.
I heard recently you say about, a father's relationship with their child, it carries so much weight, their words. We aren't taking anything away from mothers.
No offense, moms, but your words weigh 1,000 pounds. But a dad's words weigh like 10,000 pounds.
Yeah.
I was joking about the other day. My kids we got together as a family and we were hanging out the other night and they started reminiscing, telling stories. And it's funny to me. With mom, they remember all the, oh, mom, you did this for us, you did that for us. With me, they go down like, remember when dad did this? Remember when dad said that? I mean, it's like twice in my life I messed up, but or 200 times. But it's funny how they remember every mistake. They remember because my relationship with them carries so much weight as a dad. It's just men matter. We just matter. And I know the world culture says we don't, but man, we matter greatly. And so I think the other thing with family, you talked about when family is broken, it just seems to break every area of our life. It's just so hard. And it's because there's such a high expectation on family because God meant family to be this safe place, this healing place, this place for us to be equipped and prepared to do life and to be successful. It's God's ordained institution. He ordained family for our good. And when family goes bad, it affects us greatly because it has so much weight to it. It matters so much to our development. Other relationships, other working situations, other scenarios, they don't hurt us as much when they go bad because they don't carry the same level of importance as the family.
Sure. I remember years ago, I used to teach conferences in prison, faith-based conferences.
When you were in prison?
When I was, I've been. So Pastor Matt from Pure Heart's been in every prison pretty much in Arizona. That's always the
probably want to word that a little different.
Yeah.
Actually, no. At Pure Heart, we welcome people who've been in prison.
Hey, you said
absolutely, man. You've been broken. You've gone through some stuff. You are welcome here.
But I remember going into all these prisons and teaching these weekend conferences, meeting hundreds and hundreds of men and women. And one time I had the opportunity to go into a juvenile prison. It's across the street from down in Buckeye, for those who are familiar with the area. Down in Buckeye, there's the prison you usually see when you're heading to, I believe it's Yuma. And across the street, there's a juvenile one kind of tucked back a little bit. And I went there and there was these kids that at their age, I didn't know anything enough to have gotten me in prison, and yet here they're 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. They're in prison, which the unfortunate thing is then the brokenness that they experience is going to be, preyed upon and multiplied in that type of environment, unfortunately. But I remember one of the things this kid said to me, and I was talking to him and asking him about his life. And I just said, hey, you're getting out of here soon. You said, well, what are your plans? How are you going to try and make sure you don't come back here? And he goes, well, I'm going to be back here. Just matter of fact. Yeah. And I said, well, why? You don't have to be, there's maybe you can get in some classes or whatever, or ask your social worker for some things that it can help you with. And he just matter of fact goes, my dad's across the street in the prison there. My uncle's across the street in the prison there. And my grandpa's over there.
This is my heritage.
This is my heritage, and that's where I'm going to be. And to see a kid that was 11 years old already have resigned himself to that's what my life is going to be.
This is my destiny.
This is my destiny. It broke me at a deep level, but I realized, one, it just showed the value of fathers and lives to me. But two, that we have to be involved in kids' lives that do have these broken families. Because if we can be a part of a support system of helping these families, they sometimes may not even know where to turn to help. But man, if we can be involved in their lives, helping them, directing them, inviting them to church, and they go, they're not interested in coming. They're not. But man, if we could just pour into them and love them, what could we do to help redirect their lives and their children's lives and their grandchildren's lives?
It's good, Matt.
Because man, God doesn't intend for people to live that way.
That's why the church is described as God's family. And I think it's a place the church is also a great place for people who have no family or come from a broken family to find real community and to find family once again, as God designed family to work. Churches aren't perfect. There's church hurt too and church family.
Well, I think that comes back to what you said.
Be such a healing place.
Because when family goes wrong, it affects us so greatly. And church family, when it goes wrong, it affects us so greatly.
Because it matters.
And, I was just trying to encourage people that, whether you come to Pure Heart or another church, but finding, give it another chance. If you've had brokenness, a lot of times these are people who were actually in leadership in churches and going, look, I get it. Your family did things to you that hurt you. Don't throw the family out.
It's good, man. It's good.
So I'm excited about this series. I'm excited what God's going to do. And I know that it aligns deeply with your passions, Dan, and things that you've seen both sides of it over the years. And so I'm excited to see the things that God's put on your heart for it.
And I appreciate your heart, Matt. You're a good man. I love what you guys are doing with the podcast. It's going great. It's good. So let's go. Family series on the home front coming up.
And it's 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks with a family workshop at the end of that on a Friday night and Saturday.
Perfect.
End of June.
All right.
What a great section. I'm so glad we got the opportunity to sit down with Dan and talk about the family. So let's jump right into our next section with Brenna Pavkov, one of our worship pastors, where we talk about what we don't know.
So we have a segment we do here on the podcast where it's called What We Don't Know, because we are in a little bit different generation. You know, some of us not so much as some others, but I'm definitely not as young as your generation. So you've got a lot of wisdom and insight that you can impart.
So much wisdom.
How old are you?
I'm 44.
Okay, I'm 47.
But
I got 3 years on you.
Yeah, but you're
3.
You're a solid Xer. Like I'm on the edge there.
I am.
He's
I am
a
a solid.
cusper.
You're the guy throwing the coins in the arcade
Dude,
machine.
I was
you know?
the Nirvana child. So yes.
Oh yeah, see that was like I was well.
Stone
Also,
Temple Pilots.
I wasn't allowed
Eddie
to
Vedder, yeah,
because
all
I
that.
grew up in the Christian home. We didn't listen to that.
Well, so did I. I just snuck out.
He just snuck it.
So that's a little history of
Yeah.
where we came
Yeah,
from.
where we came
What you
from.
guys
so
know.
tell us more about Now this is not.
Now,
8
where do
tracks.
you come from?
Yeah. Well, I thought what would be fun this week is if we talked about social media or phone faux pas, or maybe they're just some of my personal pet peeves that I've noticed. There seems to be maybe a generational block going
Yes.
on.
I have a feeling this is going to be targeted at me. Yeah.
Maybe. I will say the one when I first met you is your lack of emojis would scare me. I would get a text that's like, hey, do you have time to talk tomorrow, period? What do you mean? Am I fired? I was so scared all the time.
I had no idea, too, because Allie called me out on this. So,
Yes.
Allie Bahanos, who used to work here and everything. But she'd constantly going, you got to throw some emojis. And I'm like,
Give us
why?
something.
I'm like, I'm just telling it's how
Or
I
an
would
LOL.
talk. Yeah.
Just an LOL would go a long way.
So I would intentionally start texting each of you guys and actually intentionally go back, reread it, and insert emojis into different places at the end just to soften it up. I'm like, that should be good.
Yeah.
So
Or an
I thought I've gotten better.
exclamation point is always nice.
Oh,
That's always
yeah.
a friendly little
Little
like
friendly.
yeah, zhuzhes it up in a nice way.
Get down here right now.
So if I had said-
exclamation point.
So if I had said, we've got to talk tomorrow, exclamation mark. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I actually would like that better. I'd be like, oh, I have a prize or something. Like I have a present waiting for me. Like
See, that's funny because if I
good to know.
saw that with no emoji context, I'd be like, oh, this sounds like angry. Like that sounds.
But for that example, can I just say that is probably the worst thing to text someone, especially if you put a
Yes.
date on it that's not like in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know,
or just that we need to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, can we
What?
connect on Monday? And it's Friday.
Yeah.
I'm going, no.
About what?
No, tell me now. Take 2 seconds and call me and let's talk, because otherwise I'm going to just my anxiety is going to take over and I'm done. It's the
Same.
worst thing you could do.
Now, Allie, that you were just talking
Mm-hmm.
about, who would be like, hey, you need to add some emojis. She would always do the opposite, where it's like 70 emojis. Well, not
I didn't know
70.
there
She
were that
would
many
do-
different color hearts
She
that
would
you
do
could
a
add on
few
this stuff. Yeah.
emojis, like little, praise hands,
The praise
smiley,
hands are
whatever,
always a
you know.
safe bet.
And so then, as a joke, I would just literally start going through and like hitting all the emojis on my thing, like thunderclap and the flag of Brazil or whatever,
I'll take that
Yellow
over
hearts,
nothing.
fist bump, fern. I'm like, what does the fern mean? I don't understand.
You ever get up some of those? Like the other day, I was looking for a specific emoji, and I don't know if it was because I just gotten a different phone, and so I couldn't find it on the keyboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm flipping through something. I'm like, has anybody ever used some of these? Like the 5th page of emojis.
Yeah.
You're like
the avocado?
avocado.
Yeah.
I think I've used the avocado. I think so.
So to literally communicate an avocado, or does
Just sometimes it's cute. Like you find ones that are all similar colors. It's a little aesthetic. You're like posting an Instagram photo dump, and maybe like halfway through, you had avocado toast or something. You throw in a little avocado.
a little
emoji.
avocado. Yeah.
Okay. So
I
there's
don't know.
association.
There's
That makes
context
sense.
in
Yeah.
which I feel like I would use the avocado.
Because it doesn't feel having a great day. Avocado emoji.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
See, I had the smartwatch, and I would reply with emojis, just
With
like a
the
thumbs,
avocado
thumbs up, not the avocado emoji, but like a thumbs up or a smiley
huge
face.
right now.
And a couple of people that were working under me at the time, they were like, it literally gives us anxiety because like all you do is just thumbs up.
Okay, that is my pet peeve. If someone just sends me a thumbs up, or
man.
if you react to it, like on an iPhone, you can press down and react to a message. And if you just give me the thumbs up, that gives me the vibe that you're mad at me and that you hate me and that you want me to never text you again.
Yeah.
I hate a thumbs up.
Yeah. See, I didn't know that.
A
I'm
thumbs
like,
up is
oh, look, I'm
horrible.
being like
Whatever.
so.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
like it gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Good for you.
Great. That's like
Heath,
the emoji
you do that a
I
lot.
use
You
the
do.
most.
You also do. This is turning into pick on Heath. You also use
Why not?
like an emoji that looks like it's punching, and
yeah,
I
the
think
fist
you
bump
mean
one.
it to be a fist
It's a
bump.
fist bump.
But, I think
But
you
it
got
looks
from
threatening.
Allie, right?
Like I feel like you're punching me.
Because Allie uses that a lot. Fist bump, praise hands. That's the other one she uses.
Yeah.
But I feel like
that's why I
And
picked
Allie,
it
if you're
up. I
listening,
picked
we
it up
love
from
you.
Allie would do it all the time. But in all fairness, though, now that I'm remembering, when have you gotten a fist bump from Allie?
she does punch
it
you.
is. It's
Breaks your knuckles.
You're like, if
She's
you weigh
trying
90
to cause you
pounds,
harm.
Well, it's because
how'd
she's
you
so
break my hand?
bony. Her fingers, it hurts.
and she drums and stuff, so she's got a little bit of
Her hands are
strength.
strong.
Yeah,
So
strong hands.
in that context, I'm now picturing that emoji a little differently. Going, that could cause some harm.
that could cause some
Yeah,
harm. Yeah,
it could cause harm.
Now, are you gonna talk about
Can we pick on
three
Matt?
dots?
It's on my list.
on your list,
It's
see?
the top one on my
Okay,
list.
all right,
It
all
feels
right.
very cryptic.
So 3 dots. So like, okay, let's say I'm texting you and I'm like, hey, I need to talk with you about some stuff. ... And also, do you have time for whatever?
It sounds creepy. It's like, I need to talk to you about some stuff. Like that's how I read it. If there's a ... at the end, that's
I
kind of how my
heard-
Sound like
grandma
Will Arnett.
texts.
I heard that it's like you've left something out purposely. Like you're not saying something. is how
Yeah,
some
it
people read
just reads. I don't know. It just is spooky to me.
Yeah.
It reads a little
See,
spooky.
it's older people that used to write letters would be like, we've
It was a
come
trail
back
off.
from
Yeah.
the war. ...
But like, just use a comma maybe or a
Yeah.
dash. Like,
I
on to
have
the
started
next
using the
thought.
dash more because I would use a dot as a
I
trail
hate
off.
a ...
I was just like, yeah, a ton of stuff happening today. ...
But that sounds
Anyways,
creepy.
yeah.
It's like, what kind of stuff? What are you talking
I was
about?
just like, I don't want to get into it, but it's
Yeah,
but it's more like
Yeah, that apparently it's passive aggressive. I read, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. I mean,
That was not the intent.
For younger people that
passive.
don't know what older people's context was, it was like there's something that like I don't want to write it all out. It's just
Yeah.
you get the idea.
Yeah. I think my last pet peeve would be,
please be about someone else.
I don't think this applies to you, but like over punctuation, like when you are too proper about making everything perfectly punctuated, it makes me also feel like you're mad at me.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because I feel like when I'm mad at someone, I'm like, no typos, everything's perfect. Like, do.
Reread it 5
But
times.
what if that's just your personality?
Like if I'm
type?
fighting with Micah, it's like, hello, I hope this text finds you well. Like I'm
to whom
over-
it may concern.
Yeah. I'm like a little bit over punctuated. And so then when people text me like that, I'm like, wait, what did I do? Are you mad at me?
yeah, when you get the really like the overly formal email that's just,
Yes.
yes, I would love to. I appreciate your input on this thing. However, like,
It's like, wait, we're buddies. Like, come over to my desk, tell me that. What's going on?
Isn't that this is the worst, and I won't say who has done this before. It's no one sitting right here. But
I hope you're not
Enough
listening.
already. I'm bleeding.
right. The email before you walk over to my desk email. Now I don't get that much as nowadays because I'm like down in the studio. So like you'd have to walk all the way down here to the studio and have a key to it. Not everybody has a key to it.
Yeah.
But when you're on
it's
the other side of the table.
the other side of the table almost. Yeah, or across the office, and then they walk over, they're like, hey, by the way, I just sent you an email about this, thing, and just so you know, you're like, great.
I
Have you had
will
a chance to look
say,
at it?
I mean, I just look, yeah.
You just sent it to me.
I will say, with our open office, we have an open concept in our office. I sometimes struggle to know, do I just go up to somebody? I see them at their desk. Should I just go ask them? Well, I'm also friends with a lot of people on our staff. Should I just text you?
Sure.
No, wait, should I not text
Or
you? Should I send
Teams?
you an email? Or we have Teams.
Or teams. So like my team, the people that work on my team, sometimes I'm like, well, should I just Teams them, or should I like send them a text, or do they have it on their phone? Do they, like,
Right. Certain people, I just know, listen, Gabe Denny, he's not going to reply to my email. I got to text him. But then it's like certain people will reply to my email. I don't. That's my faux pas. I never know what to do.
Now, if somebody calls you, are you in that age group where you're like, oh no, why are they calling?
It depends on the person.
Okay, yeah.
It depends on the person.
So,
There
like,
are
you
certain
should've
people that
texted.
could call me. My heart rate's going to go up. I'm like, what is going on?
Mark.
Probably if I got a call. I don't think I've ever gotten a call from Mark
Have you gotten a
Kendricks.
text from Mark?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the first contact point was a phone call, that would probably be
That would probably
Yeah.
make me
Well,
feel scared. Like every...
And
like
Pastor
maybe-
Mark, he runs all of our our
Yeah.
business administration stuff. So if he's reaching out to
If
you,
he's
this
reaching
usually
out.
like He's got a good reason.
He's not asking for recipes.
No.
He's going, hey, we need to talk.
He's like,
can we meet on Monday?
Yeah, I forgot one of the ingredients for the bundt cake. Like, can you let me know?
Well, it's the same with like Pastor Dan. I just never know. There's never any context. All of a sudden, you'll just see a call. I'm like, this could be about anything. I have no idea what I'm walking into. Hello.
Well, what's great though is Dan, when he calls, he does. He really wants to. There is something he wants, and that's why he's calling you.
Yeah.
Because he's a
It's
busy
intentional.
guy.
It's
intentional,
intentional.
but he does like, hey, how's it going? What are you doing today? What are you up to? You up to anything fun? And it's like, finally, I'm just like, Dan, it's okay. Like, you could just
Tell me
you
what
could
it
just
is.
ask me what you need. It's like I know you're busy. Like,
I always feel bad for it because I'm the guy who jumps right into the conversation as if you have been with me before I called you.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, you answer the phone. I'm like, so I'm thinking on that third thing we should probably do. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Help me catch up first. But Dan, he does a great job. He's like, how are you doing? What are you up to?
I
And
know.
I'm just like, what's up? Yeah, no. Just let's cut to it. Come on, let's go.
He's the nicest.
Yes.
He's the best. Yeah.
So any other faux pas that so a call, so older people, like if you're just like making
I
a call
have
to like your
one more.
grandchildren.
Just motion in my general direction. No.
I have one more. This is something that specifically my grandparents do a lot is they'll sign a text with their name. They'll do a sign off.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Or they'll say, hey, this is Grandpa. I'm texting to tell you XYZ. Like, oh, I have your contact saved. We've texted many times before. I do know who it is.
I think it's just that
Probably 'cause
generation.
they
It
don't have
is,
it in
yeah.
the phone.
Yeah, like 'cause
They probably looked up in their address book your number
Probably.
to like text you.
my dad is a software guy. Like he can make computers, different types of machinery talk to each other. Their software talk to each other. He builds robotic libraries when that was cutting edge. He was doing all that. And yet every time he calls me, he goes, "This is your father." I'm like,
Yes.
yes, the number on the phone gave that away when it came up and said Tom Bottomley. You know, it's
Right.
like I know who you are.
Yeah.
But I think that's just it was the formal thing. You
Sure.
introduced yourself. It was it's so ingrained.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know that he doesn't know any different. But,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it is just interesting the differences between that communication thing. Now, is there ones that you do to the generation below you that you're discovering that you're like, that's like, shouldn't do that?
Okay, so it's interesting. I don't know if I
You
actually
haven't
don't
discovered
know
yet.
when
She's
Gen
not self-aware.
Alpha. I don't know when Gen Alpha starts, but I don't feel like any of them text yet. But I do definitely have like younger Gen Z people, and I feel like I'm always just like 3 months behind whatever maybe they think is cool.
Now,
So I'll notice like for a long time it was like very cool. You turn off your like auto capitalization so everything is undercase or lowercase. So I would do that, but then I was like, I just like feel like I'm too old to do that now. Like
Now,
I
do
want to
you-
actually have proper capitalization.
do you video chat?
I FaceTime sometimes. I FaceTime my sister mostly.
But are you like the FaceTimer that like, I see like this alpha generation, they literally just walk around. It's not even
Yeah, you're
pointing
looking
at
at the
anything.
sky.
They're-
No, that is absolutely how my sister. We will be on FaceTime with each other and we'll like exit out and be doing our own thing on our phones, not even talking. We're just like listening to each other breathe.
And you'll just walk around the house with it like,
How's it
pointing
any
at
different from just making a phone call?
I guess it's not. We talk on the phone too. I'm not the biggest. I don't really care either way. But we will talk on the phone for like 3 hours. But half the time we're just like doing the dishes, doing our own thing.
Yeah.
We'll like randomly say something and then be in silence for like another 20 minutes. But
Oh,
That is a little weird. Yeah.
that gives me anxiety.
no, but I feel like that's like
Has
super.
someone listening in.
Maybe it's
on
not super
live.
normal. Maybe people will listen to this and be like, what are you talking about? But I know a lot of people who do that. You'll just be on FaceTime, but you're not really talking.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of company.
So the one thing that I've seen this is my last contribution to this conversation because obviously I'm disconnected. But I have a couple friends around your age that what I found is they actually will do voice notes more than text.
Yeah, I like doing that better.
Is there a reason for, or is it because you're hearing tone?
I guess I don't have
the
enough friends that
biggest
are
thing
young.
is
I
tone,
haven't gotten that yet.
or sometimes it's too much to type out. Like
it.
if I'm gonna tell somebody a story, I want to add in a little bit of character and pizzazz, and I also don't want to write out this big long thing. Like if something funny happens to me at the grocery store, like I just want to send you a quick little note on my phone, or like if I have to say something and I don't want my tone to get misconstrued, that's another really good time that I'll use like the voice memo. But I voice memo people probably more than texting.
I
It's
found
kinda
that,
fun.
that when I've used voice memo and everything, it feels a lot more natural because
Yeah.
I know that when I write down what I'm thinking, sometimes it'll come across too harsh or tense or something like that. And I'm like, no, that's just read it like it's coming out of my mouth, you know?
Yeah.
Which then it's like, well, then why don't I just say it? And then everyone can go, oh, yeah, that's how he talks.
Now, do you do voice text?
I do that
all
more than
the
I type.
time.
all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so you tap the little voice thing and talking to your phone, and it like transcribes it. Do you ever do that, Brenna?
Never.
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 You guys hear me at the table do it
all
the
the
time.
time.
Yeah, I've discovered that I do that a lot because I'm like, well, I don't want to sit here and type the little thing.
Which is why voice memo is good because it's just sending a recording of you talking.
Yeah. So don't voice transcribe your text.
Never.
Add more emojis.
Yeah. So there's so many like levels
Nuances.
of nuance. Yeah, so many nuances. Yeah. So well, thank you for all the education. And,
You are so welcome.
I don't feel injured at all.
Yeah, they were all about Heath.
He's gonna go like cry. Like,
Yeah.
Well, that just about wraps up our episode for today. I hope you enjoyed what we had today. We've got a lot more episodes planned that are going to be awesome. So if you like what you heard, make sure you check it out. Every Tuesday, we're uploading a new episode. Follow us, subscribe to our channel, whatever you need to do. We've got some great guests coming up and some great topics that you're not going to want to miss. So thank you so much for tuning in. We love you, Pure Heart family, and we will talk to you next week.